Testing 1 2 1 2. Rick, can you test that mic or make sure Ryan's mic's on? All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We've now been joined by our reigning NASCAR Cup Series champion, Ryan Blaney. As we announced earlier, the NASCAR Cup Series practice scheduled for today has been canceled. So, Ryan, thank you for moving your availability up a little bit and coming to spend some time with us. We'll go ahead and get to questions. If you have a question for Ryan, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll start up front here with John.
John Newby, NBC Sports. I was just curious where things kind of stand after Thursday. Have you had a chance to talk to any guys, look more replays?
No, I haven't talked to anybody. I saw the replays and saw all I needed to see. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't really. I'm not going to call out anybody. I was just frustrated at getting hooked in the right rear here multiple times. You know, it's frustrating when you take a 70G hit last year and then I take a 55G hit this year. You know, that's like, it's just frustrating. So just aggressive pushes and duels that I thought were a little bit over the top for the timing of it and for the moment that was in the duels. But no, I haven't talked to anybody. Hopefully I just don't get hooked in the right rear again, because that's no fun. Sucks. So.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, we'll go to Bob.
Bob Parker, Fox Sports. How was the backup car, and were you planning on going out at all today?
No, we weren't planning on it. No, regardless of rain or not, going out today. I thought the backup car yesterday was good. I kind of learned all I needed to learn in the small pack that we had. Kind of getting pushed. I wanted to feel that. How can I take a push? How can I push somebody? How did it handle in a couple like funky situations off of 4? And I was very happy with that. I couldn't tell a difference, and that's what you want. Not being able to tell the difference between backup car and primary. So they did a good job of getting that thing ready. You know, you don't really, all our group, right? You don't normally get backup cars ready. That's just not really a thing anymore. I think you have that mindset, right, coming down here that you can. You might need to use a backup car, but they did a good job of working super hard Thursday night. NASCAR let them in a few hours early yesterday morning, which was really helped those guys out of getting ready before practice. So, yeah, I think our piece is just as good as it was, Thursday night, and hopefully, it shows come Sunday again.
And so much of this race is fuel mileage, and I'm curious, does that change at all if you're racing on a green track? Does that make anything more difficult to calculate or figure out going into the race?
No, I don't think so. I think everyone on our group really understands kind of your fuel mileage number and what you do, before your stop. It's changed. It's weird. It's a lot of saving before your stop, especially if you get a green flag. Really, it helps you on the green flag stop, just taking less gas, burning less when you're out there running, just trying to speed up the stop, especially if you're just doing fuel only. So hopefully and it feels like everybody has got that game down now. I feel like last year, even the end of 22, I feel like our group was pretty good at being early with that, of like understanding, hey, if we just save a bunch of gas, and I've just had that mindset, it's like, hey, I'm going to save gas, and if I, enter pit road and row, 10 or 12, I'm going to make up a second on the stop, and I'm probably going to jump these guys. So it's like, who can save the most of the gas efficiently? You even see leaders saving now, and it kind of slows all the pace down, and you'll see an outside lane, top lane, third lane kind of come for a while if someone decides not to save gas for a while and get their track position. So it's kind of it's an odd cat and mouse game right now. Who wants to be, aggressive on fuel saving? So, yeah, everyone kind of has that mindset now, but I don't think it changes much on a green track or not.
All right, we'll go to Chris and then Dustin. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Ryan. Chris Gollin over here with WNDB, over here to your right. First, I wanted to check, are you feeling okay after that crash? And because I know you're no strangers to hits like that here at Daytona, I mean, how long does that stick with you physically? Is it going to affect how you're feeling for Sunday?
I'm sore, that's for sure. I'm probably more sore today than I was yesterday. I feel like the second day is always kind of the more day of soreness, neck area, all down the back, just muscles getting strained. That's kind of the biggest thing. Everything else felt fine. Just kind of all your muscles and kind of down your shoulders and stuff, that just gets pulled, in weird areas that you're not used to. So that's the most sore today. So I've been trying to be ginger with it. Everything else I felt fine with mentally and stuff like that. So that was good. But yeah, I don't think I'll be fine to go. Hopefully, if we were to run tomorrow, I'd be good to go then. And if I get another buffer day, if we run Monday, I'll be even better. So no, just a little sore, but that stuff will pass.
Is it similar to what you felt back in August? A little better, a little worse?
I would say more of my body felt sore in August for longer. And I was able to be home in August to try to kind of get worked on by people at home. Here, I haven't been able to kind of get worked on as much as I did last year. Just people not being here, they went home after the duels. So we have a great physical therapist in our camp that she's amazing, and so she'll be able to help me out tomorrow a little bit if I'm still feeling sore. So it wasn't as bad as last year's. It was still pretty brutal, but I was happy with how the car kind of crushed. I thought that was good. I haven't seen a right front in the firewall before, so I think everything that they've done NASCAR-wise kind of to get these things to crush more is good. And there's some stuff that I've talked to them about to try to get better and better. I think she'll help me out tomorrow if I still need it.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yep.
Okay, our next question will go to Dustin.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Ryan, I'm confused about something, so forgive me. When you talk about the pushing and feeling like it was too hard, I guess there's so many different drivers, so everybody's got different opinions. I've been around long enough, you've been around the sport long enough, where there once was a period where you didn't push at the tri-oval at all, so now you push everywhere. Heck, part of the reason the Ford success in here in years past have been because you guys can push in the corners. So when you're expressing a frustration, I'm kind of confused, because to me, the game has changed so much. I almost think, are you not adjusting, or, and maybe that's not a fair way to say it because I'm not the one who's taken a 55 and a 70G hit, but I'm just confused why you feel that way with how the game has changed.
Yeah, I mean, pushing is a huge part of the speedways now, right? And you see it more than ever. You see more pushing now than, I look back at the only time you push more was the tandem racing, right? But that was like solid connection, being on somebody, and now the bumpers kind of being round. You see guys kind of get out of control more. But I think, right, you have to push hard, and I fully understand that. And like, I push people hard, but I try to take care of people. Like, as the pusher, you are responsible for the guy in front of you. You have just as much of a responsibility to make sure that you don't shove the guy in front of you through somebody. And you have to understand where you have to let them go. You have to if you are the third car in line, you have to let the second place car in line go. You can't just shove them through the guy leading the top lane, because then it gets bumper cars, and then that's when people get turned. And it seemed like the other night, kind of where the 6 shoved the 8 into the 24, like he didn't really let him go early enough to where he was just coming too fast. And then you hit him in a tri-oval to where there's kind of lateral load, and that's just going to turn that guy. So, pushing is a huge game, and I'm fine with. I mean, you can push the hell out of me. You just got to be smart where you do it, and kind of how you get on somebody, and you have to be knowledgeable of like what spots are good to do it and what spots are bad to do it. And I'm not upset with hard pushes, because that's what it takes to go forward in this game. You just have to be smart about where you do it and the timing of it, and letting someone go. Like, something me and my spotters talk about a lot. If I'm the third car in line, he's letting me know all the gaps to the car that is in front of the car in front of me. Like, all right, you have 1 car length, half car length. Okay, he's there, and you have to just let him go. Like, you have to get off that guy's bumper, so you just don't shove him through the lead car. So it's just where you push. You have to be smart of that. Push hard, push super hard. That's fine, but it's like last year in August, the 20 shoving the 54 through the corner and kind of moving on his bumper. Like, you just can't do that, and then the trial thing, like, he just shoved the 8 so hard into the 24, 24 had no chance. Like, you have zero shot of saving your car. If you're running 10 miles an hour faster than the leader and you run through his bumper, like, you just can't save that. So it's just smart about where you do it and how hard you get on somebody, and when you have to let that person go, and just, you want to develop runs and you're trying to go forward, but sometimes timing gets off, and you have to be like, okay, well, that didn't time out good. Let's re-rack and let's try it again the next lap. And so maybe we can time this out better. Like, if you get on somebody before you get in the tri-oval, you can push them all through the tri-oval. But if you kind of hit them right at the start-finish line like that, it just gets them all out of shape. Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that. You noted the 70G hit in August, the 55G hit the other night. Are those the two hardest hits you've had that you're aware of? Or I don't know if that Nashville one would have been harder, if there's something else that's been harder in your career.
Yeah, I feel like the Nashville hit was by far the hardest hit I've ever taken. I did not have a mouthpiece in for that. I had one in for the other two. The mouthpiece data has been really good for us to see because you have the black box data from the car, but that's just showing the car G load and impact, right? The important one is what does the driver feel and take? Not the most, but it's a huge part of the equation, right? And that's how you kind of separate, okay, the car took this impact, the driver takes this impact. So I didn't have a mouthpiece in Nashville. I've been wearing it every week since then just to make sure because you never know when it can happen. And it's good to have that data. Wake Forest has done a good job of really working hard at that. And those folks are great. So I don't know what Nashville would have been. It felt way worse. And I look at the mental side of it. Mentally, I was way more messed up after Nashville than I was, at these two hits at this racetrack. But Nashville was by far the hardest one. But the best data I have to go off of is these two.
And last thing is, do you change anything off of getting that information from the mouthpiece and the hit? Do anything before Sunday or Monday?
No, I mean, internally, like in the car, I feel like we've done the best job that we possibly can on making sure I'm as safe as I can. Like, I had zero problem with how I reacted in the car, like how my body was. We do a good job of always trying to find ways to be better and protect us, and Penske's done a good job of always making that a number one priority, the driver safety side. So everything, from this hit last year here to this one the other night, we tweaked some stuff after Nashville of stuff that I was like, hey, I think we can do this a little better, like belts and Hans strap length. And I run pretty short Hans straps just because I don't want my head to move forward a lot. And but no, I think everything worked the way it should, the best that it can, and you're only going to do so much, right? I mean, there's only so much you can do, but that's all you can do is make sure everything is the best it can be. Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to go Kelly, then Mark in the back. Go ahead, Kelly.
Kelly, CrownTheRacer.com. So Ryan, those numbers came from that mouthpiece data. That's been, it seems like a really good thing to have. You're getting those exact numbers. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like these wrecks specifically last year and now the one that you just had the other night, do you feel like they're starting to take a toll, or you still feel pretty comfortable that, you're worn out, but you have the resources, and you mentioned folks that work with Team Penske. So do you feel like you're bouncing back okay, or do you feel like they're starting to take a toll maybe? Because it's been a lot over the last half a year.
It's more than I'd like to take,
Yeah.
but that's part of our sport. I mean, you understand you do this and, do it for a reason, and you understand the risks of it, and it's just what we do. It's understandable. Like, I don't ever think about the bad side of this. If you're ever like worried when you're strapping in the car of like, I hope I don't take a big hit again. Like, that's just not a mentality of anybody. So all you try to do is find out how to win the race, and you understand when you sign up. I understood when I signed up for this thing, watching Dad race, that there's dangers of it, and things are going to happen. I mean, I don't really see that it's taking a toll on me personally. It's things sitting around and being sore and having a hard time moving around the next morning, but you just get over it, take Advil, and figure it out. So, I mean, it's all you can do, but it's why we love it, and that's why we do it. And you don't ever think of the negative side of it. You just try to figure out when those things do happen, hey, did we do all we can to make sure I was as safe as possible? And if the answer is yes, awesome. We checked that box. We did a great job. And if not, then you try to work on things to get it better. And that's all you can do. There's only so much you can do.
What is the Saturday now like, the rest of Saturday before the Daytona 500, going into Sunday, hoping and assuming, if you try to keep your schedule on track of we're going to race on Sunday, what will the rest of today be like? What is this time now like leading into Daytona, and how do you spend it? Where do you put your mindset? Do you try not to think about it, or do you think about every little thing and what this race is?
I mean, that's really my like schedule doesn't really change. I mean, your schedule's pretty set as far as things you have to do off the track, a week ahead. So, I don't really think about it. I mean, Gianna and I go to dinner tonight and just rest up and get ready for tomorrow and all the stuff you have to do pre-race and and figure out. We've already pretty much made our car's locked in, right? They're doing final tech right now, and our changes are locked in. Jonathan and I figured out what we were going to do after practice yesterday. Hey, this is how we're going to have the car, and then it just sits, it just waits. So, and then, we already understand like the strategy of the race. Like we talk about that weeks in advance and kind of have an idea of what we're going to do. Some things might change kind of on the fly, or like when you pit, who you pit with, just depending on situation stuff. But, yeah, everyone knows. I mean, I don't wake up anymore race day morning of the 500 and like overwhelmed anymore. You understand it's a big race and you know what it means. So you mentally prepare yourself for it for the whole off season, the whole winter, and know how big it is. And then you just wait to get going. The worst part is the sitting around side of it, right? Sitting around to do this huge race and this big event. You just want to get going. You want to do what you're most comfortable with, and what people are most comfortable with is driving and racing. And that's all I look forward to, is just getting it going and then seeing how it all plays out and develops. So the waiting around, twiddling your thumbs, it stinks, but it's part of our sport sometimes. You get pretty good at it. So.
All right, we'll take our final question from Mark in the back.
Mark Carroll at PRN. Ryan, I'm glad to see you make it through another one of those.
Thanks.
Sort of along the lines of Kelly's, you've talked about the physical part of it, but accumulative frustration. I mean, does that sort of carry and each one build on, you're frustrated by rec 1, a little more frustrated by 2, a little more frustrated by 3. Does that kind of keep building?
No, I try to forget things pretty quickly and get over them. I was frustrated Thursday night, but like Friday morning I woke up and I was over the frustration part of it. It's just you get over these things pretty quick, and so yeah, it's just when those things happen you get frustrated about it. Like, gosh, I can't believe I just got right reared for the third time at this place in a row. That's the frustrating part about it, and it just is like, when is this going to end? It's like the tale of two racetracks for me. Talladega, for some reason, we have really good fortune and don't really get caught up in many incidences and always have run up towards the front. And then here, this place, the last few times I've been here, I just can't do no right and just feel like I just get caught up in a product of someone else's mess. And that's just part of it. I've put in my head a while ago, going to these speedways, of, hey, things can happen and it's out of my control, so I'm not going to really let it get to me too much. Yeah, I'll be frustrated with it for a few hours, but I wake up the next day and I'm over it. And just try to figure out the next deal, and that was figuring out how to get our backup car to where it needs to be, and strategizing for the race. So it's just frustrating when those things happen, but I get over things very, very quickly. So thank y'all.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much for spending time with us. We wish you the best of luck tomorrow on the Daytona 500. Thanks. All right, we'll go ahead and continue here with our final Cup Series event. All right, we'll go ahead and take questions for Brad. If you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you. We're going to start up front here with Lee and then go to Bob. Right behind you, Lee. There you go.
Lee Spencer, CatchFence.com. Good morning.
Good morning.
You've been so successful at Talladega, and we've heard for years this is a handling track. Is there any other thing that us not being behind the wheel don't recognize that differentiates the two tracks? We hear the commonalities, but what specifically is the difference between being successful here and being successful at Talladega?
It's funny how just some small things about a track can completely change the racing. And, I think probably the biggest difference to me is that Daytona is just narrower. I think the next-gen cars generally handle pretty well, both here and Talladega. But the difference in the width of the tracks, it changes the techniques that work or don't work. And, that plays out with, significant impact on the results to where it's really hard to carry over things from one track to the other. So, I think probably the biggest thing that stands out to me at Daytona is that because the track's narrower, you just see more aggressive blocking. Because the thought is that I can contain somebody when there's only 3 lanes, where Talladega, for a good part of the track, there's 4 or 5 lanes. So, I think you just see different types of blocks here. Yeah, generally more aggressive for sure. Because like I said, you feel like you can cover 3 lanes where you can't cover 4 or 5. No problem.
All right, we'll go to Bob.
Bob Pockris, Fox Sports. So much of this race is fuel mileage and trying to kind of coordinate everything. Does that become any more difficult or easier to change on a green track?
I don't think it makes a big difference, Bob. It's the racing just always evolves, and now it's evolved into just that. Where the last few Daytona Talladega races have been really heavy fuel mileage based racing, and those are some of the ebbs and flows of the sport. I don't necessarily know if you'll see that this time. Obviously once everybody gets their pit stop done, it's not fuel mileage racing, right? So generally I think you see that up until your pit stop in each one of the stages that there's, a lot of people focused on that, but afterwards not so much. So that the last 10, 20 laps of each of the 3 stages, I think you really see the intensity pick up. I don't think that'll be any different.
All right, additional questions for Brad? We'll go to John here in the middle. I'll get a mic up to John right here. John, raise your hand just a little bit. There you go. Thank you.
So Blaney was in here and he was talking about how when you're pushing aggressively on the super speedways, how he has a spotter giving him the distance between the car in front of him as well as the car in front of that car. I mean, that can do some to limit the wrecks that happen. But is there other stuff that like you and your team can do or other teams can do?
Not necessarily. I mean, there's only so much you can do. I mean, things happen so fast, and we do rely very heavily on spotters. But there's a lag there that's always going to exist from the moment something happens to the moment a spotter sees it to the moment he can communicate it, and the moment I can understand it or the driver can understand it. There's a significant lag that happens there, and you try to do what you can to condense those things, but at the end of the day, these are cars moving at 200 mile an hour, and they cover a lot of ground really fast. And so as you go through that lag, it's hard to always manage all the different situations. I can tell you when I rewatch a race on TV, how much different it looks than it does in the car. With the limited visibility you have in the car, moves that seem so obvious watching from TV in the car, like you don't ever even see them, or if you do, you see them, half a second later when it's too late. So I find myself watching race film and playing like the quarterback, Monday morning quarterback. Like, you should have made this move, when I evaluate myself, but it's just way different in the car.
Okay, and then obviously, I've never gone 200 miles an hour, pushed someone else in a different car. So with the importance of pushing on the super speedway package now, I mean, how do you as a driver kind of balance when to go, when not to go, especially, in like the tri-oval area?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors. Certainly the track, how the tires are, where you're at in a run, the handling of the car in front of you. And then there's, only some certainty you have to that. Like, when you're driving the car, you don't know how somebody else's car is driving. And I thought it was interesting. This past time we were at Daytona in August, one of the keys to us winning the race and finishing 1-2 with RFK cars is Chris Buescher and I pushed all the way through the tri-oval here, I think with 1 lap to go on the white flag lap, and cleared the bottom lane from the second lane to win the race. And his car was driving pretty good. My car was driving pretty good. And then I went to Talladega, a month or 2 later, and I was pushing another car. And Talladega should be easier to push through the tri-oval than Daytona. And the second I started pushing him, he spun out and got in a big wreck. And unfortunately, I got in it too. And, so you're like, well, how does that make any sense? This track should be easier. The tires are better. And one car spun out and the other car didn't. But there's no way I can know how everybody's car drives and what level of control they're going to be able to have over it. So, you try to build up experience in this own kind of database to make decisions, but then there's just unknowns. Like I can only really drive my car and know what it's doing, and maybe my teammates because I've talked to them, but I can't know what everybody in the field has to work with. And I know the alternative of not pushing is to run in the back, right, and to not have a shot to win. So, those are difficult decisions to make in real time, but that's what makes it special when you have success at these tracks is you've made all the right decisions generally more often than not. No problem.
All right, we're going to take our next question. Well, we'll go Reed since you're right here, and then Jason next. Go ahead, Reed.
Reed Spencer with the NASCAR Wire. You were behind the 8 when the accident happened in the duel the other night. What was your view of exactly how that unfolded?
Yeah, something happened with the 24 and the 12 car, and it really spit the 24 car out kind of in front of the freight train that was myself in the 8 car. And, by the time we could all recognize what was happening, it just was too late.
All right, Jason.
Jason Allison, NASCAR Productions. Brad, following up on Reed's question there, how thankful afterwards were you that you did not have to go to a backup car?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, there's the team owner side. It's like, we were able to put a fender and a nose on this thing and some ductwork and a bumper, and that's better than bringing out another car. But then there's the other side. It's like, well, from the driver side and mechanic side, that you look at it doesn't make a difference. The cars are identically prepared, and I really wasn't super concerned about it.
All right, any final questions with Brad? Okay, we'll come up here with Dustin for our final question.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. You've been very open the last few weeks, especially about how much this is a focus of winning this race and how much you want to win this race. And, I know you want to win every race, but obviously you're talking more about this race, and obviously there's always more on this line. So as you get closer to this event, what is the feeling? Is there a peace? Is there an anxiety? Is it how is you as an athlete, especially somebody who talks so much about it and has been so close to it the last couple of years, now that we're getting within a day, hours of it, what's the mindset?
Honestly, I'm more concerned that we're not going to get to run it tomorrow. I just hate that for everybody that, works hard and spends a lot of money that comes here, and, the team's included, but, mostly our fans and you guys, we want to be able to go. We're as hungry to go as everybody else is, and, it's frustrating to not have the weather on your side, but, I outside of that, I don't know. I don't feel like I have a ton of anxiety over it. I mean, I feel really well prepared. I know my car drives great, and we'll have the speed to go with that. I just want to make sure I do my part to execute what I can execute. And, I'm kind of somewhat reserved to the fact that the end of the race kind of is what it is. And, there's going to be 15, maybe 20 cars that will have a shot at winning in the last, 24 laps or so. And you just hope you're around to be one of those cars, and you hope that when the moment comes, if you are one of those cars that has a shot, that you do everything you can right. And then the rest is kind of out of your control. I guess there's some kind of peace in that, but, outside of that, I just want to go lead a bunch of laps. The last 2 races here, we've led the most laps, and I always feel good about that, leading the most laps or leading a lot of laps or being up front the whole race, because if the lottery ticket at the end doesn't go your way, at least you have something to hang your hat on, I would say it's probably where my focus at is leading a lot of laps early, leading through the middle of the race, hopefully getting a lot of stage points, maybe even a stage win. And then just kind of like, hey, what happens at the end? We're just going to be in the right position and, try not to do anything to mess that up execution-wise. And we'll see how the cards fall,
And maybe this isn't a fair question because you haven't won it, but what does it mean to win this in the sense of, as you're talking about, because there's so much luck involved or so much is out of your control, it almost makes me think of the mindset drivers have had in years past with the playoff format. Is it's almost as meaningful to get to the Final Four because
Yeah,
the championship race
Yeah.
is so much. So, and I know you haven't won, and again, maybe this isn't a fair question, but in your mind, because so much is out of a driver's control, so much is luck or circumstance, what does it mean to win this race, or how do you see the value of, what type of driver wins this race?
Well, it'll always be a crown jewel, so you can never take that away from Daytona. But if I was putting on my team scouting hat, and I was thinking about that this morning after watching the truck and ARCA races, this wouldn't be the place where I would scout a driver to pick. Like if I was like, hey, let's go watch the ARCA truck Xfinity races, and we're going to pick the next NASCAR Cup Series phenomenon. I'm not like, well, let's look who won Daytona last night. That's the guy I'm going to pick. That's the reality is that's not what you're going to do. And, I think in some ways that's telling. Now you're going to look for the guy that made good moves, and was calm in, situations of duress. You're going to look for the guy that, didn't speed down pit road or didn't make, a dumb mistake. That stuff carries over, the execution stuff, but probably not so much the, pure race winner. Where I think you look at most other races, fast forward a couple weeks, Vegas or what have you, Phoenix, and you're going to look at the guy who wins the race. That's probably a guy I would need to scout a little more, right? And so I think that's kind of the same thing carries over to the Cup Series, right? You're going to look for the guy that, I went through a bunch of review yesterday with the team, and there's Joey Logano in the last 3 green flag pit cycles here has been a second faster than everyone else. We'd say, oh, that's really good. That's him. That's not circumstance. It's not happenstance or any of those things, right? That's really him. That's impressive. If I was scouting, that'd be what I'd look at and say, he's one of the threats to win the Daytona 500 because he can execute a green flag cycle better than anyone else in the garage area right now. And there's probably going to be a green flag cycle. Those are the things that I would look at and say that's the talent. That's the thing, that special sauce that makes a driver really good. Not necessarily the winner. But that said, you still want to win it. It's still the Daytona 500. It's still the biggest race of the year with respect to purse and fanfare and so forth. And there's still a really big trophy in a ring, and you can never take that away from this race.
All right, we'll go to Chris.
Hey, Brad. Chris Scallon with WNDB. I wanted to ask you a question kind of as a team owner. So we know David Reagan hopped in the 17 car yesterday for a bit as Chris went to attend the birth of his baby. I was wondering, number one, did David bring any insight in those sessions to the 17 team they may not have already had? And then also, I was wondering if you could speak to, what was the decision to bring in David Reagan as the guy to run the Stage 60 car for this race in particular?
Yeah, I'll start with the end question there about bringing in David. David ran this race in 2022. I think he ended up in the top 10 somewhere. I can't remember his exact finishing position, but just ran a really smart race. Didn't get caught up in the chaos, kind of like I was just saying a minute ago. Had good patience and the moment wasn't too big for him. I think I have a lot of trust and respect for him accordingly. He's been driving the Ford test vehicle, the Wheels Force test vehicle, and doing a lot of simulator work for us at Ford. So we felt really confident in his skills and ability, and kind of feel like he was the number one free agent to bring in for this race. That's kind of where the decision came from. Certainly someone that we knew could also represent our partners really well. So it was really a no-brainer move. When we looked at the free agent list, and he was clearly at the top, and there wasn't really anyone close to him. So felt lucky to be able to bring him in. Outside of that and him driving the 17 car, it's always good just to get another opinion. Sometimes even if that opinion is the same opinion. And from everything I've heard, he has the same opinion of his car that Chris had.
Thanks, Brad.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, and I think, Bob, did you have a question? Okay, we'll get a microphone to Bob, please.
Bob Pockris, Fox Sports. With them doing Tech today, will you send anybody home to do work on Atlanta or Las Vegas stuff and then send it back? How does the change in the schedule impact maybe anything you're doing this weekend?
Yeah, it's positive for us and for the team guys. I know we sent home, our spare parts haulers and backup cars and all that because there are Atlanta cars. So that's actually very helpful for us with having two speedway races back to back. There's significant challenges for us to, be prepared, and that helped us a bunch.
All right. Brad, thanks for spending some time with us.
No problem, guys. Thank you. Have a great day. Stay dry.
Best of luck in the Daytona 500.
Thank you.
Hopefully tomorrow.